Today in Comicstorian, Kingpin has brought himself down by murdering a man in a public place. But we also need to see what's going on with Matt Murdock now that he's hung up the Daredevil life and being trained by Elektra. You have found yourself at the Comicstorian channel where I take some of your favorite trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites. I give you a synopsis of the story, which allows you to understand what is happening within the story without the extra fluff or the B-plots. This allows you to increase your own collection if you choose to by going to your local comic book store or buying them digitally. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Today we're going to be continuing our storyline of Daredevil. To give you a quick recap of the playlist down below, Daredevil accidentally killed a man, and then decided to give up being Daredevil after he couldn't figure out how to do both, live with his guilt and be Daredevil. While this is going on, Wilson Fisk is the mayor of New York City and trying to get away from the criminal life. As Daredevil is finding it difficult to stop being a vigilante, Elektra has arrived to train him, but Wilson Fisk is trying to work out the more political side of his job and got so mad that he just killed a man and stuffed his body into a bathtub. And that's where we are, Daredevil issue 13, 14, and 15. Let's get into it. Matt hangs up after another unsuccessful call to Mindy, a staff tapping his shoulder as he turns his head to regard Elektra. Your first lesson, concentration. She tells him as she tosses him his own staff, and he whirls the staff in his hand, dropping into a fighting stance ready. Meanwhile, back with Wilson Fisk, he stares down at all of the blood, knowing that if anyone discovered that he did this, it would end him. It would end his life as the mayor. He reaches for his phone, dialing his aide, Wesley. Wesley, I need your help. I don't know what to do. He stammers and stutters quietly, and Wesley steps out of his car, hearing the details of Fisk's situation. Stay where you are. I'll be there momentarily, he says simply as he begins to walk towards the house. Wesley is quick and professional. He gets the information that he needs about the staff and he heads to the back of the house. He steps into the kitchen, locating Julio Oliveira's, and walks towards him. He promises that if he does exactly what he says, then no harm will come to his family. At 245 Symington, the man's eyes go wide with shock as he follows Wesley without a word. They arrive at the bathroom that Fisk has locked himself into, with Wesley ordering the mayor to not leave so that he doesn't spread more blood. He orders Fisk to remove the body and he turns to Julio. This is an intense situation. If you scream, I will kill your family, Wesley promises to the cleaning man. Fisk opens the door with Tyler's body and it's placed into the cleaning cart. With that done, Julio is let into the bathroom to start cleaning. Next, he informs the mayor that he will call in the incident as a suicide and allow the police to arrive. Wesley turns to Fisk's driver, handing him Tyler's keys, ordering him to return with the cleaning cart when the work is done. The driver nods and quickly leaves with the body. Meanwhile, the staff strikes Matt in the jaw, sending him to the ground. What do you want? Elektra asks him as she twirls her weapon. To be better, Matt says as he struggles to his feet. He dodges another strike as Elektra sighs, reminding him that he's never had an actual goal. You can't work without goals, because if you don't have goals, you fail, she says as she blocks his blow, striking him in the chest, and Matt doubles over as she walks away. So let's have some focus. You want to play your old game? Remember the last time that you did, someone died. She points out, informing him that he must gain control, and to do that, he must have knowledge. Matt kneels, breathing deeply, stretching out his senses. Before any blow is struck, you should know this room, know your opponent, know yourself. Breathe, use your talents. If you know everything, nothing can surprise you. He senses her moving behind him, senses her shift to attack, and he brings up his staff, blocking the blow. He then shifts again, lashing out, cracking her in the shoulder. She grunts off the pain, smiling at him. It's been a long time since someone's managed that. See what goals can get you? Meanwhile, back at the Stromwims, the cart is returned and Wesley heads back into the bathroom, asking if Julio is finished. The man shakes his head, still trying to clean up the blood, but Wesley shakes his head, telling him that it's perfect. It's as good a job as can be expected under the circumstances, he says with a smile, and then he reaches into one of the drawers, pulling out a razor blade. It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to not look like murder. Fisk's driver grabs Julio from behind, covering his mouth so that he can't scream. I'm sorry, Julio, your family will be compensated, Wesley promises as he hands the razor to Fisk. Meanwhile, at the public library, the owl laughs as he realizes that Lizzie Libris asked to meet him there because she felt that he wouldn't try anything in a public space. She looks at him as they walk along, finally accusing him of attacking her family directly and trying to burn down everything that they own. You may try to hide it. Lay the blame elsewhere, she begins to say, but Owl smiles, shaking his head. I did it. She's stunned by his straight-up confession, but he merely turns to his henchman. Do you need corroboration? Butch, did I try to kill Izzy Libras here? The man laughs and nods. You most certainly did, boss, he says, and she gets angry, pointing out that this isn't how they do things. They don't attack each other's families. There are rules in place. There used to be. Owl nods, but he does admit that killing her was a mistake. His men suddenly pull out their pistols and shoot Lizzie's men, ignoring the screaming civilians that are suddenly rushing out of the library. Owl smiles, getting close to Libras. Now I want you alive to tell your remaining men to follow the new Kingpin of New York. A smooth transition. I'm not scared of you, the cops, or Fisk. The Owl is in charge, he says, turning away, walking out of the library quietly. Meanwhile, the police have arrived at the Stromwinds, questioning everybody about what happened. Fisk's story works. Julio committed suicide and Fisk found the body. But the Stromwinds know. They know the truth. There's no other thing that could have happened. And they stare at Fisk as he tells his story. Elsewhere, Detective Cole North walks out of the police precinct. He's been put on 2 weeks leave pending a psych eval, and he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what is the right thing to do when he finally slides down, sitting against the wall, lost. A shadow suddenly falling over him. Hey, buy you a cup of coffee? Matt asks, looking down at him, his face covered by a dark mask. A short time later, the waitress is looking down at the two men at the booth. So just coffees? She begins to state, but stops when she sees Matt's masked face. You're not gonna rob us, are you? She asks after a pause, and Matt smiles up at her. No, ma'am, just sensitive to the light is all. He tells her. Cole nods, still glaring at Matt as he promises the woman that he won't let anything happen. I'm a cop, he tells her. The waitress just shakes her head, walking away. I should be taking you in right now. Cole hisses at Matt, who nods and agrees. I know. I understand the law. Matt begins to tell him, explaining that he never intended to come back, but he realized that the system has rot and he can't ignore it, that he's trying to make amends for what happened to Leo Carrero. Cole just gets angry, telling Matt that the law isn't about guilt, it's about accountability. He sighs, hanging his head, explaining that the reason that he left Chicago was because he accidentally shot a kid. He was chasing a drug dealer, rounded a corner, and saw someone with a gun. It was a phone. He heard the commotion and wanted a video. But he explains that he was investigated, answered for his actions, because he believes that no one is above the law. Matt stares at him for a moment before shaking his head. You're wrong. Everyone isn't equal in the eyes of the law. The rules bend when you're a cop. He tells Cole that anyone else would have gone to jail for what he did. They argue for another moment before Cole finally stands up, walking out of the diner. Matt follows him, questioning why he isn't arresting him. I don't know. Cole tells him with a sigh, explaining that it shouldn't make a difference, but the fact that Daredevil helped him in the precinct has made him rethink things. Everywhere I look these days, I see enemies. And then, there you are, saving me. I have enough enemies, he says, stopping and turning back to Matt. Matt nods, explaining that someone high up ordered the police to stay out of the kitchen. There's a gang war happening with Fisk stepping away from his throne. People are getting hurt. Someone high up wants this, and I'm gonna find out who. And I need your help to fix the kitchen. To root out the dirty cops, he tells Cole, who just stares at him as he turns away, asking him to think about it. But Cole calls out to the masked man. Are you back? Am I looking at Daredevil? But Matt keeps walking, finally calling over his shoulder. No, I've made too many mistakes as Daredevil. For now, I'm just a concerned citizen. Meanwhile, back over at Fisk's apartment, Wesley walks in to find that Wilson is planning on working from home again, having hidden from the world since the incident at the Stromwinds. But Fisk finally waves off Wesley's concerns. It's a small embarrassment, nothing more. I will beat them by proving myself. But Wesley's phone buzzes with concern, and Fisk turns on the news, finding the station covering a protest on the farmland that he acquired, with the protesters demanding that the land not be used for drugs, but for local-grown food. Wesley gets back on the phone, talking to one of their aides, trying to set up a counter-protest, but the call is suddenly interrupted and his eyes widen. Hello, Wesley. It's Una Stromwin here, with my brother Quinn. May we speak to Wilson, please? Fisk takes the phone and the Stromwinds apologize for the unfortunate incident in their home and the run of bad luck that Wilson is having with protesters. We'd like you to come to our campus this Wednesday to discuss ways that we can help. They hang up the phone before Fisk can say anything, and he stares at the phone in disbelief. Finally, anger filling him up, and he throws the device against the room, scattering his breakfast as he bellows in rage. Meanwhile, at Matt's apartment, he once again calls in sick, trying to figure out how to find the information that he needs to help the kitchen. His thoughts are interrupted by the doorbell, and he opens it to reveal Mindy. He brings her in, once again apologizing for ending their call so abruptly the other day. He sits her down, asking her to take her daughter and leave the city, believing that Hell's Kitchen is no longer safe for her, and that he cares for her. But she just gets angry with him, accusing him of doing exactly what her husband is doing and trying to control her. All she wanted was a casual fling with him. He tries to reason with her, but she slaps him in the face and storms out of the apartment. "You're an idiot, Matt Murdock," she shouts as she slams the door. Matt just stares at her, knowing that she's right. But he shakes his head, crossing the room, opening the closet to reveal the black uniform that he's been using in lieu of his Daredevil costume. Elsewhere, Hammerhead walks through the doors into Lizzie Libris's base of operations. Hammerhead nods, admitting that it seems like war, and Lizzie agrees, offering him an alliance. Share the assets between the two families, and she holds out her hand. Hammerhead regards her for a moment before taking her hand. "That's a smart play. I'm in," he says, and with this done, he turns to walk out. Meanwhile, Matt is sitting on the rooftop looking down on his city. He senses her coming, rolls around quickly, ducking under attack, throwing out a kick, and the blow takes her in the stomach, throwing her to the ground. Elektra notes not bad as she jumps up, attacking again, and they talk as they exchange blows until Matt finally pins her to the ground, explaining to her that they're sitting on the roof of the police headquarters. While Matt listens to the commissioner talk about how he orders his police out of Hell's Kitchen. I listen, and apparently he has to answer to the governor, Matt says as he lets Elektra up. He tells her that he's tired of going after the small fish, and he plans to go after the governor. "You in?" She smiles and nods. "Yes, I think I can handle that." Fisk, meanwhile, arrives on Stromwind's campus, stepping through the metal detectors as the security guards order him not to touch the Stromwinds at all. Meanwhile, Foggy opens up his office door to find Matt sitting at his desk, feet up. "What the hell? I haven't seen you since I saved your life," Foggy snaps at him, and Matt smiles. "I'm not sure that's exactly how it went down," he says, but he thanks Foggy, who quickly fills him in on the situation with the fake Daredevil and how he's been helping Joey Carrero. Matt sits up from the desk, revealing his tactical uniform to Foggy, who stares at him. "Are you kidding me? You're Daredevil again? After everything you said?" Foggy asks, anger flashing across his face, but Matt shakes his head, telling Foggy that Daredevil is dead. He's trying to be something different, and that he isn't just wildly swinging at people. "Why are you telling me this, Matt?" Foggy demands, but Matt explains that he wants this to be different, that he doesn't want to keep secrets from Foggy this time, that he wants to show him that this is different. Also, Joe knows that I'm Daredevil, he says as he reaches for his coat, telling Foggy that the young man saw him at the precinct when he saved Detective North. He turns, walking out of the office, wishing Foggy good luck with his clients. Finally, Fisk has arrived at Stromwind's office. "Thank you for having time to meet us. We know you're busy, Mayor," Una says with a smile from behind the desk. "I have all the time in the world for new friends," he tells them, expressionless. "Excellent. Since Una and I seem to be losing them," Quinn tells him with a smile. But Una isn't interested in beating around the bush, telling Fisk that they know that he murdered Tyler. He doesn't deny it and apologizes for allowing his temper to get out of hand. "He was your friend and I'm sorry," Fisk says simply, but Stromwinds thank him for the apology, but reveal that his death isn't why they're upset. It's that he did it in their home without their permission. That his act forced the police into their home. "That's why you're being punished," Quinn explains, telling Fisk that the protesters and the shutting down of his drug legalization is their doing. But Una sits back down at the desk, revealing that they feel that Fisk needs a stronger lesson to learn not to mess with them. And the door behind him slides open, revealing 3 armored soldiers. Fisk's eyes narrow as he regards them over his shoulder. "I am the mayor of New York City. Whatever you plan here, it is a mistake. I am not the man you think I am. I have not been for quite some time," he tells them, but the Stromwinds raise their glasses to him, knowing exactly the type of man that he is. Fisk sighs, removing his jacket, rolling up his sleeves. At the governor's mansion, Elektra watches the house from the darkness of the forest, pointing out the perimeter defenses to Matt. They move forward through the trees, using the darkness around them to hide their approach. They're on the rooftop in moments. Inside seconds after that. The governor is inside his study, looking up from his work, his eyes widening at the 2 ninjas in his parlor. "Governor Kettle, my friend here has some questions, and if you say or scream anything other than the answers, I will most likely kill you." Elektra says that she stalks forward, drawing one of her sais. She puts it to his throat, pushing his back against his desk. "I'll try to stop her, but I might not succeed," Matt says before asking why he ordered the police commissioner to order the cops out of the kitchen. Kettle doesn't fight, immediately telling the 2 that the Stromwinds ordered him to do it. "You gave them up way too easily," Matt notes, but Kettle just nods, admitting that it doesn't matter. They can't be touched. "You're just a guy in a mask. You could scream it off the rooftops, but who would listen?" he says, smiling as he continues to sweat, and Matt regards him for a moment before turning back to Elektra. "We have to move," he says, with seconds later the doors bursting open to reveal the security officers. Meanwhile, back with Fisk, the armored soldiers rush him. He puts up a fight, hammering them down, but they shrug off the blows, hitting him again and again. They slap him around the office, throwing him through a bookshelf and into a desk. Fisk is out of shape, and he knows it. He knows that he could beat them as the Kingpin, but not as the mayor. Blood pours out of the wounds on his body as he looks up at the smiling faces of the Stromwhims. Matt and Elektra leap over the security guards, avoiding their attacks. "No killing! Close your eyes!" Matt hisses her as he throws a flashbang. The grenade explodes, flooding the room with light and sound as the two rush out of the door. But they hit the balcony and look out on the front drive as Matt curses when he sees the police approaching. "We must have missed someone," Elektra hisses. Back with Fisk, he's beaten, one of the soldiers holding him up. "Here's the deal, Wilson," Quinn tells him as he sips his drink, stepping forward. He explains to Wilson that this isn't their way of telling him that he works for them. "No, that would be insulting, and frankly, we don't need you," Una says. The soldier drags him over to the window. "But we don't actually like you. So much so that we've already called the paramedics. Get well soon," she says with a wave. Fisk's eyes widen as the soldier lifts him up, tossing him through the glass. It shatters around him as he plummets towards the pavement below, slamming hard into the grass just next to the sidewalk. Just as the paramedics are pulling up. Back at the mansion, Matt and Elektra roar out of the garage in a sports car, screeching through the night roads. Matt quickly brakes the taillights, taking the wheel from Elektra, driving them through the darkness of the night. He pulls off the road and they both hide in the forest, allowing the police to drive past. "All right, that should buy us enough time to make our way back to the car in front," he whispers to her as they get out of the car they're in. With Elektra laughing, she grabs Matt, kissing him roughly as she pulls him down onto the hood of the car. "Don't you feel it? You're back," she says with a smile. And with that, we have wrapped up Daredevil issue 15. Now, like I've said multiple times, this series is 37 issues, and it's just one continual story. So this one was a kind of a bridger, the beating of Wilson Fisk. I hope you guys enjoyed, but trust me, it's about to get even crazier, because right around issue 18, things ramped up so much that I just sat down and read this in one sitting. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you next time right here at the Comicstorian channel.